Everyone. I hope you all are aware that today we are supposed to discuss about how to write a systemic review because this is not only of importance in academic way but also even for your professional growth as well. People write about systemic reviews, in fact. So, what are the other reasons if someone needs to write? Yeah, you sometimes people need to write part of master thesis, doctoral thesis, or even as a publication, as I said it, in fact. And a lot of times about a topic, when you want to summarize all the information which is available to the scientific community, that is the time you write a review article. So, what is the function? As a to in simple points, we can say it like this: if you want to evaluate the literature, organize the literature, synthesize, and also identify the patterns and trends in the literature. Similarly, when you want to identify what are the research gaps where you want to address to actually. So whenever we talk about the reviews as well, I'm going to keep on giving you some examples as well. What are we talking about and all, and I hope you guys have also read or referred to the two review articles which was written by me and I had shared with all of you students as well. So on the type of methodological approach, you can divide it into several parts. And what are they? So one is called as narrative review. In narrative review, what you do is the selected studies compared and also summarized, and it is on the basis of course, the authors or the author group's experience. They try to tell about what are the existing theories, models, and you try to put it up in a qualitative model rather than a quantitative model. The other one is best evidence review. Best evidence review is you try to focus on the selected studies and you try to put it up in a systematic method, and you try to select those studies and of course focus on the results. And something else is which is really scientific, which is called a systemic review and also meta-analysis. So these are some of the scientific methods. And as I said it, so what happens is narrative review can be more of biased. It depends upon the author, what they are trying to choose, why they are choosing. So it can be pretty much biased. So that is the reason systemic review and meta-analysis is preferred much more, at least in the current scenario, even on a global basis. So in the systemic review, you have to find from the individual studies in a with the tools available from the statistics. But those procedures are very strict and you must define them adequately. So that is what is called a systemic review. And when you pull up those data from which is available from the individual studies, that is what is called as the meta-analysis. Who has read this article which was supplied as a part of reading task? So what type of review is it? Anyone would like to comment? What type of review article is this? I showed you 5 types of article, right? Okay, I'll try to ask, is it a narrative review? Is it a systemic review? Or is it something else? Anyone? So to tell you, so what happens is I hope you guys have read it, because this is what you should try to do in your spare time, or when there's some connectivity problem, try to read about it. Then you can understand the topic better and you can score much higher as well whenever you write a systemic review as well. And you can spread your name in the global world. So what happens in this is more of a narrative review. In narrative review, What did I write about? I wrote about the management of pulmonary vein stenosis following catheter ablation of atrial fibrillation. So what happens is pulmonary vein stenosis is a common, earlier, especially I would say, with radiofrequency catheter ablation, it was much more common earlier days. But with growing experience, it's a rare side effect, I would say. So, what do you do, especially in the title? What are the things it should be? Whenever you wrote a title as well, you saw in this article as well, the title was this. But why? What are the characteristics of the title? The title should be informative. It needs to include the important terms. You know that, yes, you're writing about a review article, okay? And you may also include the message of the article, not just its coverage. And the title has to be short. Keep the title really concise, okay? It should not be too much long as well. And yes, ideally it is said like better to keep it between 8 to 12 words, not more than that. If you keep it really long, yeah, it can be very much difficult to understand. Okay. Then comes after the title, what was this thing which is written over here? If you can read it well, this section is called as abstract, right? So, what are the functions? So, what are the characteristics which should be there in the abstract? It needs to be informative. So, for example, people should be able to understand what is going to be the content of the article. Similarly, they need to know the it can be under further subheadings as well, like objectives, materials, results, and also conclusion as well. So in the objectives, you need to know there can be few sentences telling about what is the intention of the review. Later on, you can try to give a general picture of what was the approach, how did you try to get those results, about the main outcomes. And finally, you can summarize in just a few sentences. After you have written about uh, your abstract, what do you write about? So, what is the section? What is the new section which comes about? So, after that, you have to start writing about your review. So, in that, so the first section is called as introduction. So, introduction, you try to introduce your topic, and in that, you can further divide it into three subheadings, something like subject background, the problem, and also the motivation or justification that why are you trying to write that article, in fact. And uh, and the length of the introduction section is typically within 10% to 20% of the core text, okay? And you must be able to make sure that your focus is a little bit narrow, and you also try to say about the explicit research question, what are you trying to do, why are you trying to do as well. So you must be able to justify the theoretical or the practical need for doing this review. So from the same review article which I showed you the topic, this is how the introduction section. Would someone like to comment? What is happening in this introduction section? What are we focusing upon? Anyone would like to comment? What is happening in this introduction section? So I already showed you theoretically what happens. But what is happening in this article? What did I write about? What are the sections? Anyone would like to comment? No one? So what is happening is initially, as I said it, I was using several technical terms. So initially I introduced the atrial fibrillation, what it is. Then I introduced the term of pulmonary vein stenosis and how it happens. So what are the different causes? I introduce the other causes, and I later on I introduce that yes, pulmonary vein stenosis can happen secondary to AF ablation. And then I also introduce the other causes as well. So then we can focus only on the pulmonary vein stenosis secondary to AF ablation. So that was the reason, okay? So this is what has been done in this review article. So after the introduction section, what is the next section in which you have to write about? So you have to write about material and methods. So in the material and methods, what do you write? So in the material and method section, you have to write about exam. So you have to comment about the data source from where the data was taken. For example, yeah, did you search those technical terms, or what was your search strategy? Did you look into the PubMed? Did you look into the Web of Science? Did you look at somewhere else? What was your selection criteria? And the number of studies which was screened, and the number of studies which was included, and also the statistical methods of meta-analysis actually. So these are all important things about which one must comment about. Okay, so lengthwise, the section of materials and method is approximately 5% of the core text of the whole article, in fact. So you must be able to clearly identify your data source and give really priority to the material and method section. So that's really, really important. So precision is the key in this section. So then after you have written about the materials and methods, so then comes the main part, which is literally like the body. So in the body, what do you write? So in body, you must be able to, you can try to make it easier for you by creating several subheadings in the form of methodological approaches. What are the model or theories which you have tried to use? The extent of support which is there for a topic. Try to put them in chronological order, or of course in geographical location wise as well. And you can structure the paragraph in, in a way like, so for example, in each paragraph there can be only one topic. Okay, so in each paragraph there will be one topic, and similarly what will be happening is you should try to avoid, you should try to avoid in the sense, what you should try to avoid that in one paragraph only one topic, not it should be from one to another, another to another one. Do you understand? And similarly you can try to give link or references as well. How are you going to put about it actually? Okay, so then comes the tense. So a lot of times, how shall we using it? Shall we use it in the present, simple past, or present perfect tense? So present tense, what will happen is it has its own usage as well. In the sense, if there is a finding which is relevant even to the present, you should write it as in the form of present. It is believed Dr. Kumar saw it observed like this. So it is like this. Simple past. Simple past was like, for example, in a single study, what was seen earlier, which was found. So you can say it like this: Dr. Kumar found. Similarly, present perfect. When would you use it? So this, it will be referring to an area of research with a number of independent researchers involved. For example, Dr. Kumar et al. Have found. So did you see the notice, the tense? So the use of different tenses for this. So now coming back to the article which we are discussing about, what do you notice in this article? So what did you see this? What are you all able to see in this? Anyone would like to try? I hope you all have read the article which I had sent it to you all before. No one has read? So what are we talking about actually in this slide? No one? So what, as I said it, after giving the introduction, we came to the materials and methods. In the materials and methods, what I tried to describe was how is the experience of the others and all. And what is, I try to give a comprehensive overview that what is being done, how is it done, what is the other experience. So, for example, with the cryo balloon as well, what is the experience? What about the laser balloon for atrial fibrillation ablation? Isn't it? So, that is also very important. And similarly, then I try to give my own experience as well. Maastricht. So, Maastricht is located in Netherlands. So, I try to give in Maastricht experience, so my own experience. So, what I said was yes, with a radio frequency, it can be seen more oftenly, but with cryoballoon, it is very less common. And similarly, then I said it also about my laser balloon as well. And similarly, what about irrigated tip radiofrequency catheters? As I said it, if someone is trying to use it really well, so for example, when the power settings are limited to the target area, for example, more than 25, yes, if you use higher amount of power, pulmonary vein stenosis, higher chances will be there. If similarly, if you try to go deeper inside as well, there are higher chances. And then I also try to introduce one more thing, what is called as contact force catheters as well. And then I said it, yes, with them, you don't see it much more often. Okay. So far, any comments from the audience? Are you all able to understand? So what are the subheadings? So the subheadings for even for the review article as well, it is very much similar to an article. But what is the difference? Systemic review is a systemic, you have to follow a system. You have to follow an order to review. You have to go back and see all those things. And that is what is called as a systemic review. So in writing a review article, you need to follow some of the rules. That's what we are trying to discuss it over here. So similar like a normal typical article or a project, capstone project, same thing it happens is you have to write an abstract. Abstract again you can split it into several subheadings like objectives, methods, results, and finally conclusion. And then after that, same way. And now you will have to come about the review article. So in the review as well, what do you write about? As I said, it's same thing. Introduction, methods, then comes the results, and then after that, after the results will come is the conclusion, right? So, so once you have dealt with all those other sections, so in the conclusion, what are the things you should try to focus upon? Or what are the topics which you will try to focus upon? So you have to answer the questions about the what are the implications of these findings, and then interpretations by the authors, and then about the you must be able to identify these unresolved questions. Okay, so that is really important. Similarly, the kind of a verb or tense what you're using, so is it present? So present tense should ideally be used when you are trying to summarize and draw conclusions. And then you should be using present perfect tense when you are trying to refer to an area of research or a body of literature. And in this, ideally speaking, in conclusions, you should not use any citations. Okay? So conclusion typically the length is like 5 to 10% of the core text, so it should not be really long. And I would really want you guys, whenever you try to write about the conclusion heading, there is a take home message which integrates or summarizes all the points which is discussed in the review. Okay, and it should not be a repeat of the abstract. So it should not be the same words which you have written in the abstract. You really need to be sure about it. So the wordings and all, everything needs to be different. Do you understand? So it's really important. Abstract is different, conclusions is different. So now coming back to the article, what have we done in this table? What do you see in this table actually? This table is again from the article. So what do we see in this table? So in this table, we see this is a summary of the different authors which they have written about the similar topic. So this is a summary of the studies about pulmonary vein stenosis management, secondary to atrial fibrillation ablation using the different interventions. So this is a nice summary with the table. So someone used a drug eluting stent, someone used a normal stent, then I made them into several headings in the sense. So one is about the study, who were the authors, then came the number of patients, then came the treatment modality, then came the follow up in month of durations, then came how much was their success rate, and later on how did they do the follow up, because the follow up also can make a big difference. I have also written about the postural changes and how do they affect the success rate in fact. So then, as I said it, yes, those subheadings I had said it, and other than those subheadings, you must also put up tables and also figures. In the figures, so this is like a figure. So what is this? So one is a CT scan, high resolution computerized tomography scan, and the other one is with a three-dimensional reconstruction. So in this, what was shown was the stenosis of the left superior pulmonary vein. Okay. So after you have written all this, the next section, which you should not forget, is acknowledgement. In the acknowledgement, you try to write about the people whom you want to express gratitude to, actually, who helped with the literature search and also the structuring of the material, or especially in the writing process. And yeah, so for example, authors, so most of the people who have contributed in a big way, you need to put them in the form of co-authors. But the people who did not contribute so much, you should try to write them in the form of acknowledgement actually, and you need to express gratitude to the organizations which helped you to fund and also specify the funding program. And then finally comes as the reference. So in the reference, what do you comment about? So in the reference, you must follow the reference style, the citation style of the journal or your university, which has been said. So that is really important in the sense so people can refer to those original source of information wherever they want to, if they want to. Okay, and then so in that, yeah, you can give. It depends upon the journal. So some of those journals they want that the number of references should not be too much high. So they limit it up to 20, 30, or 50, or even 100 as well. So it depends. So now, this is literally like a single slide summary of the whole talk. So this contains the stages, what are the steps you are trying to use, and you can even just put a tick mark. So initially you have to think about a topic, Then you have to prepare about your review article. You need to narrow down the topics, search for the literature sources, read, evaluate, classify. You must be able to make notes and really find the focus. And finally, compose a preliminary title. Once you are done with that, you need to develop a structure. And after developing a structure, you need to write the draft about method section, body section, conclusions, introduction, and also the abstract. After that, you need to revise the draft of different sections, abstract, titles, tables, figures, and legends, and also revise the citations and references. And yes, you need to adjust the layout. Are there any questions? Are there any questions so far?
Students, if you have any questions, kindly raise the questions to the faculty.
Hello,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Yeah, in reference, we can add general's name and what others if we take some material from there.
Okay. See, it will depend. I think if you will remember the last presentation which we had about how
Yes,
to write an
yes, sir,
article,
yes,
how to write an article or capstone project. So in that we had
yes,
spoken
yes,
in
yes,
detail about the
yes,
references.
yes, sir,
Yeah. So in that we had
yes,
already shown it depends upon the citation style. So most of the times it is the author's name. So initially you will put those author's name, then will come the heading. So from the what was the name of the article, okay, to which you are referencing, then
okay,
will come those page numbers, or then will finally come the DOI, digital object identifier, or the month or year in which it was printed. This is how it is.
yes,
But there can
yes,
be minor
okay,
variations, and that's why I had also suggested that there are softwares as well which is available, which you can use it to help yourself. Something like EndNotes. EndNotes is a paid version, so there are some free softwares as well which is available, which is called as Mendeley, so which is available, so you can also use it, so when you're trying to use a lot of citations or references actually.
okay, okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any more questions? So in the meantime, I'll try to give you a reference of another article as well. So this is like a, so what type of article is this? I want to hear the voices of you guys. So for example, this article was, this is a systemic review and meta analysis, I'll tell you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this was published when? When was it published?
To April 2017.
Exactly.
Uh,
So this was published in, so this was with my colleagues from Australia. So we published it in one of the best journals. So that was the title. So after you have written the title, what do you think for? Now you know the journal as well. So what are the next thing you are trying to focus upon? So you are trying to focus upon what is called as the abstract. In the abstract, this journal had a particular style. You need to give about the background. Background is adenosine is normally used for showing the dominant pulmonary vein reconduction after the pulmonary vein isolation for AF treatment. So then a systemic review and meta-analysis was done to see the impact of adenosine administration in the patients who were undergoing pulmonary vein isolation for AF. So what are the methods? In the methods, you try to do meta-analysis of 22 studies to assess the rate of freedom from AF in patients with dormant pulmonary vein reconduction versus patients without dormant PV reconduction. And also, you try to see in the patients who were given routine adenosine post pulmonary vein isolation versus the patients who were not given adenosine. And the relative risk were calculated. So you try to tell about the methods, what you use, what was the numbers. And now then comes is the results. In the results, you start talking about the big numbers. What did you get when you did all these things? So in this, what you got was 18 studies were there, in which there were 3,000 patients who had undergone. And then what you saw was the freedom from AF in those patients with dormant pulmonary vein reconnection was significantly lower compared to the patients without pulmonary vein reconnection. Okay, and then you also comment about the relative risk and also the confidence interval. Similarly, so 18 studies were like this, and then in 7 studies, you comment about the patient number and what did you observe over there. And finally, you tell about the conclusion. So, conclusion wise, what happened? In the conclusion, you can tell about the present study showed what were the clear benefits. So, the clear benefit was the patients where dormant reconduction from AF was ablated, so there was freedom from AF recurrence. So that's why adenosine guided dormant conduction is associated with higher AF recurrence despite further ablation as well. And then we also showed them what is the gap. What is the gap in knowledge? So we showed them this as well. And then we spoke about the keywords. So after you have written about the abstract, what is the next section? Next session you write about. Anyone? What do we write about?
Material and method, sir.
Exactly. So after this, what did I write? Can you see what did I write? So we wrote about
Material
methods. Exactly. So in methods, we wrote about the strategy, search strategy, what we followed, and also about the statistical analysis. So in the search strategy, what you can read over here. What have we written? So we have written our search strategy was using Prisma. Prisma is a very important guideline actually. So Prisma refers to preferred reporting items for systemic reviews and meta-analysis. So Prisma statement, and we gave the guidelines. So we try to search in Medline, PubMed, Cochrane, and also these databases, different databases. Okay, and then after that we did the statistical analysis. And how did we do the statistical analysis? So that's what we write about. And this is the Prisma guideline, which is normally used for reporting the items for systemic review and meta analysis protocols. So, in that, we said, so it's all put up in the form of a flow chart: identification, screening, eligibility, and inclusion. So, what were those criterias? So, initially, you try to identify those many databases just after the search, which belong to which. So, one group was 672, the other one was only two. Then you screen them. Okay, after screening, these were the eligibility criteria. And finally, you included was this. And what is this one now? So this is, as I had said, so you are trying to give a summary of the different groups or different publications, whichever is there. You try to comment about them. So what was done, how it was done, how much was the number, what was the number of patients, what was the adenosine protocol as well, which was used for this. So you try to write. So this is a very huge list, as you can see. Now, in the figure, see, you can write everything, but it's not always good to write everything. So what you need to do is you must be able to show your data in a beautiful way. So what is this type of plot it is called as? So this type of plot is called as forest plot. And forest plot, you try to see the trend. So for example, different studies are there, they are showing the relative risk ratio. Isn't it? So this block, which is called as the forest plot, it will show you the overall trend over here. So how much is it? So it is the studies are favoring no reconnection on an overall basis. So this shows the relative risk of freedom from AF post ablation versus adenosine versus the ATP induced PV reconnection. So these are the different two groups in which you are trying to see. Did you all understand it actually? And then, of course, you try to conclude as well that, yeah, uh, in this slide itself, the last line is already there. So the it favors no reconnection group has got much more better weightage, in fact. So that is what will be the conclusion. So you can write it as well, but if you can show your statistics in the form of a table or a figure, it tends to become much more better. So that's what it should be preferred. So I hope in the next project it will be much better. Any more questions are there now? Any questions about your project?